Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creativity-Hive's weekly program. My name is Miriam Haugen. I'm part of the Creativity-Hive team. We help creatives learn to make impactful storytelling videos through one-on-one teaching and live group coaching. And I'm really excited to bring this week's guest on. But first, a word from our sponsor.
I help you market you. There you go. You want to know what I do? I help you market you, and you are your business. Everything in your life, including your business, is all about you. And if you want to grow and thrive and market you need to.
Connect with Russ Hedge at russhedge.com.
So thank you. And welcome to Mark Coudray. Tell me how you pronounce your last name again.
Coudray.
Coudray.
Happens all the time.
I needed to spell it phonetically.
It's such a unique name. I feel really special because I am the only Mark Coudray on LinkedIn, the entire network. So it doesn't surprise me that people have a hard time pronouncing the name.
Right, because we always want to put an extra R in there.
Yes.
It's not C-O-R, it's C-O-U-D-R-A. Awesome. Okay, so you tell us about what you help people make more money in less time. And I love that. So tell us about that.
Well, a little bit of a backstory. I find a tremendous connection to the work that you're doing, because our background started in creative practice. My wife is a graphic designer. We were in the print and publishing area for decades. We dealt with all kinds of creative individuals, and we struggled as a creative from the sense that we were always told that if you created the best product, and that you worked hard, you'd get ahead. And that, if you created something that nobody else had, that the world would be the path to your door. Well, it took me 35 years to realize that was a big lie. And I realized also in the traditional space, analog space, and I'm old enough to remember chemistry and film and, printing plates and all of those kinds of things. The digital world works differently than that. And we need to work more effectively, and we need to work faster, and technology changes. And what I found was the creatives were not making enough money to be able to afford the next fastest Macintosh or the next faster video camera or more terabytes of storage space or whatever it was. They just didn't have enough profitability in their business because they weren't focused on profitability. So in 2006, after 35 years in business, I pivoted and started focusing on teaching how to be more productive and more profitable with less effort. So this work hard, get ahead is now work hard, make more money in less time with less effort. So it's don't be all exhausted all the time and working really long hours. I want you to work less and make more. So that's what I teach.
That is so great. I used to fantasize about, this seems so crazy to me right now, fantasize about if I just didn't have to sleep, I would be able to get so much done. How crazy is that?
Well, that's what we dream about. But the reality is life gets in the way. And when I would sit down and I would work with clients and I would ask them to help me understand their day and what they were doing, it was filled with walk-in customers and phone calls and machines that would break and computers that wouldn't save documents. And oh my gosh, it's endless. And so we have to understand how to address that level of complexity before we can simplify it and before we can really decide what we should actually be doing so that we can make better decisions as opposed to life making decisions for us.
Right. So I'm going to bring Neil on the stream here. So say hi, Neil.
Hello.
We don't have Unfortunately, Mo said everybody sent good thoughts to Mo. He's not feeling well and decided they actually needed to sleep since it's 2 a.m. his time. But okay, I was fascinated when we talked before about this, the physics of profitability, and how you got into thinking of I don't know, thinking about this as a science, right?
So my background, I'm formerly trained as basically an image engineer. So I learned the technical aspects of taking an image, and an image could be words, it could be photography, it could be anything, and applying it to some material. So it could be paper, it could be plastic, it could be fabric, it could be ceramics, whatever. So it's a degree in graphic communication, basically imaging science, to manage all the elements of how we reproduce things, whether it's newspapers or magazines in the old world, or whether it's web pages today. So my whole focus on that from day one was to apply science and mathematics and statistics to essentially the craft. Because at that time, which was the way back in the 70s, printing was moving from a master craftsmanship model where everything was in the head of the journeyman master craftsman, the master printer, and it was becoming standardized, and it was becoming automated, and it was having more science applied to it. Technology was moving ahead, and I recognized that the timing was perfect to apply engineering principles to the graphic space. And that's what I did. I started my first company when I was 19 as an incubator for the ideas that I had. And in today's dollars, I ran it full time while I was getting my degree and taking a full time university load at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo down here. And in today's dollars, I graduated. We were doing about $200,000 a year as a business, and we went from $200,000 to $4.5 million with no outside funding, no investors, no computers, no spreadsheets, no social media, no email, no fax machine. We had a phone with 2 phone lines. And a big milestone for me was getting a hold button on the telephone. So that was a different time, but it was a rocket ride because we just exploded around the principles of what we were doing because nobody had ever seen them. And we went for corporate accounts, and we got really big accounts really, really fast. And I made a lot of crazy, stupid mistakes just because I didn't know any better. But I hung in there. I'm never one to give up. I continued to refine over the years. And one of the core values that I have, that I've always had my whole life, is to find a better way and share it with others. Because I realize that if I share whatever I'm doing with someone else, that creates my own competition. And once I have my own competition, then I can see how fast the ideas adopt, how fast it grows in a marketplace, and how fast I need to move on to the next step. So that's how I got going. That's where my background was. And then about 2004, 2005, 2006, I noticed that in the industry that I had shepherded through, they were not adopting the new technology fast enough. And the reason they weren't adopting it fast enough is there wasn't enough profitability there. So I pivoted from working on the technical side to create better manufacturing processes and faster speed and faster setups and better color management and all of those kinds of things, and pivoted to applying math and science and statistics to business. And doing the same thing that I did with the technical side, but now let's look at the prospect of improving more profit within a business faster. And so that's how it came about. COVID accelerated all of that.
Yeah.
I was already in a pretty heavy lead generation program on LinkedIn to get new clients. And as soon as COVID hit and everything shut down, I ramped up the contact and outreach. And during COVID, during 2020, from March until the end of the year, we connected with 9,000 business owners of $1 million to $10 million companies. 9,000.
Nice.
Out of those 9,000, I had over 600 exploration calls. And the way that I did it is I would send a message to the people I contacted, and I would say, business owner to business owner, I'd like to connect with you and set up a short call to understand how this disruption is affecting your industry and your geographic area, independent of what's happening in the media, what we're hearing in the media. I have nothing to pitch and nothing to sell. My motivation here is to try and understand the nature of this disruption, and anything that I learn, I'm happy to share with you. It will help you in any way at all. And so there was a huge
is brilliant. Focusing on them. It wasn't about, here's what I have, here's what I'm offering to you, I'm learning about you, and telling them you don't have anything to sell. Although, of course, they're going to know that eventually it could lead to something that you could offer them. But yeah, they're going to be willing to. I would have been willing to have hopped on a call and just, I would have been interested.
Exactly. And so I had all of these calls. I recorded every single one of them. I put every single one of them into a machine learning artificial intelligence model that I had developed in 2016 and 2017. And so the AI was finding patterns, and it was finding situations that were going on. And out of all of this, I sat back one day and I'm thinking, which I'm prone to do.
Really?
And I was saying, okay, these really small businesses, everybody that I talked to had been shut down as being non-essential. And so they shut the businesses down. And I noticed that the big companies had a real hard time slowing down and shutting down. They had a lot of stuff going on, and they just couldn't turn off the switch and come to a stop. They had to wind it down. It took them sometimes 2-3 weeks to do that. The small companies, they just turned the lights out and walked away. They were completely freaked out. I met with a bunch of these companies, and we sit down and we huddled and we created some strategies and pivots. And the little companies, they opened right back up and they hit the ground running with a new plan. And man, all of a sudden they were online. They were taking orders online. They were communicating in different ways than they had before. They were taking orders and delivering them in different ways, whether they came for pickup at a certain time or whether they put them out on curbside if it was a restaurant or whatever. All of these things kind of just happened. And so as I sat back and was thinking about this, I thought, okay, the big companies, they got a lot more to deal with. The small companies, they're agile. They can slow down faster and they can accelerate faster and they can regain their momentum. And then all of a sudden it hit me. We're talking about mass. We're talking about inertia. We're talking about momentum. We're talking about acceleration and deacceleration. These were all physics terms. So I thought, oh my gosh. So I pulled out all my old physics high school or physics books from college, and I pulled out Newton's laws of physics and the laws of leverage and dynamics. And I simply started taking business and was applying what was happening in business to the laws of physics. What were the variables? What was force? What was mass? Mass was the size of the business. What was acceleration? Acceleration was the amount of marketing money and effort and cash that you had. That cash was the fuel that would get you into the market. So I started taking apart all of the elements that had profitability associated with them, ways that we convert energy and motion and direction to profit. And as I studied that, I realized that what I was looking at was more complicated than I originally thought. And what really caught my attention was the principle of leverage. And we've all heard of leverage in business. And, you know, it's kind of like you use a long lever and you put a little bit of effort into it and you get more result with less effort. So I thought, oh, less effort, more result. That led me to create the law of inverse effort. And the law of inverse effort was a mental model, a mental experiment that I created to test these ideas. And the idea was that if I wanted to double my business, I could only do it with half the effort. And if I wanted to quadruple my business, I could only do it with 1/4 of the effort and 1/10 to 10x the business. And on the surface, it seemed ridiculous. It seemed counterintuitive and stupid. Honestly, it seems stupid. But sometimes when you create thought experiments, that's the first response. But then as I delved into it, I started thinking to myself, okay, what are the things that are actually profit levers? And I found 42 different things that we can do that affect the ability to add value, which creates profit. And then what I did is I took the laws of dynamics and I applied not leverage, but compound leverage. And compound leverage is where you get a leverage result with an outcome, and then you apply a subsequent leverage to that, lever to that, and sometimes 2 or 3 levers at the same time. So sequence became critical. I found one scenario that literally will quadruple the profit of a business, quadruple 4 times with no effort, no additional resources, no cash, only changing the sequence of the operations that you are doing. Only changing the sequence. Nothing new, no knowledge, no capital investment, no new machines, no nothing. Just changing.
Okay. Would you be willing to share an example of this?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the first examples that I looked at was, okay, here's an example of how we can improve our profitability. We can raise our price. Well, that's pretty obvious, right? The compound aspect of that would be to lower our cost at the same time. So now if we look at the difference, here's our margin. If we raise our price, we have this much margin. If we lower our costs, now we have this much margin. Great. So far, so good. But now here's the real kicker. What people never look at is the time it takes to deliver what you do. So this margin divided by the time it takes to do the work tells you what the real value of that operation is. So all I did was create this marginal value of all of the work that's coming through a business. And here's one that's like $300 an hour. Here's one that's $46 an hour. Here's one that's $446 an hour. Here's one that's, oh, this is a big one. This one's $900 an hour. So what I did is the same thing that FedEx and UPS does, and the USPS. You want it tomorrow? It's $100. You want it tomorrow afternoon? It's $50. You want it the day after tomorrow? It's $26. So they put a value on the time to deliver. So what I did is I created a situation where we would simply lump the highest to the lowest value and push that to the beginning of the accounting period. What that did for the business is it depressed the break even. You would hit your break even faster. And so and the break even in my definition is the total cost. This is a departure from the way accounting books teach cost accounting. I cover total costs. I don't care whether you do 1 job a month or 100 jobs a month, you're going to have a total cost for that month, right? So if you push that total cost, and in my own company when I did this, we were using a traditional accounting that they taught us in school. And that accounting method would keep us right at break even. We were breaking even at the 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock on day 20 of a 20-day month. So if we had a machine break or something didn't show up, we were going to lose money that month. Somebody didn't show up for work, we were going to lose money. If we, had a really good month and everything lined up just perfect, and we had some really profitable jobs, we might make a little bit more that month. But it was make some, lose some, break even, make some, lose some, break even. And
That sounds like my life.
that's where everybody's peaks and valleys, right?
Yeah.
And so when we did this, we were in the 4 to 6% net profit range. And within 60 days of making these changes, we were in the 30 to 35% net profit. 30 cents, 35 cents out of every dollar was pure profit. And the reason is that we had depressed the break even from day 20 to day 15, day 14, day 13. We got it down to day 12. Every job that we ran after day 12, 100% of the margin on that job was pure profit. That was just one example, and that was a really simple example of using 2 levers and 1 timing situation. Didn't require investment or effort anywhere along the way.
Okay. So I'm guessing that a fair number of people listening to this might be solopreneurs,
Even
maybe
more
they're
important.
just, yeah. So about necessarily an employee not showing up, but
Well, certainly if a supply doesn't show up,
uh-huh.
you order something with UPS or from Amazon and it doesn't show up and you needed to finish what your next step is, guess what? Now you've got open time that you better have something to fill with it. So the key thing here is maximize the value of every minute that you have to work with, because a minute is the only common asset that everybody has. Elon Musk has the same 24 hours that you or I have, right? What he does with that, he's got massive leverage. And so what happens is his profitability fluctuates in the billions of dollars a month because of the massive leverage that he's applied and the compound leverage with thousands of employees and different products and different companies and all of that kind of stuff. It still follows the laws of physics.
I'm speechless.
It is a different paradigm, that's for sure.
Okay. So if people now you actually have various ways that people can connect with you and actually like hire you, as I recall.
Yes.
You have so tell us about that, and we should get that posted here.
So right now we're putting together a brand new program specifically for smaller companies. I normally work with companies $1 million to 10 million in revenue. And the reason I do that is because at $1 million, they've got enough working capital that they can afford to make an investment in themselves, and they can see some real results real fast. And the owners are active in the business between 1 and 10 million. Beyond 10 million, they're playing golf or they're, kind of doing other things. They're not as active. There's other people involved that have to take longer to make decisions. It slows down. So I've been turning away anybody that was less than $1 million in sales, which on my list is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So I put together this program that will be starting shortly, December. It's called March to $1 Million. And what it is it uses the principles of the physics of profit to maximize what a business is actually presenting into the marketplace, and is doing it in a way that makes them competitively unique, right? So competitively unique means there's no competition. So if you've got an offer where you're unique and there's no competitive competition, that's worth 6 to 9 gross margin points, which is 6 to 9 profit points. So you can become instantaneously double-digit profitable just by becoming unique. That's the starting point. And then from there, you'll learn the value of time and how I make that work, so that you've got all the principles in place that will allow you to get to $1 million and be positioned for the next program, the next big program, which is called double-digit profitability or double-digit profits. And double-digit profits is double-digit growth with double-digit net profits after you've paid yourself. So you paid yourself your salary and you still have double digits left over. So this has been what people have told me that they really want. So that's what I've designed for them.
So the double digit profits is more. I mean, what if you're going, oh, I'm not even ready to think about a million. I'd just be happy if I could get to six figures.
Oh my gosh. We could do
You're-
we could do six figures in a month. Because the solopreneurs, what kills the solopreneurs is they've created a job for themselves. They
right.
don't have a business. So I show you how to make a business out of what you're doing so that it's not dependent on you. If you decide that you want to take a day off and do a photo shoot, if you have a day off that you want to do some creative painting, it's not going to affect your income. And this is all in how we change our view of how we see the world and how we see our own world, and to let go of a lot of closely held false beliefs. They're holding us back more than you might imagine.
Well, I can imagine.
The work hard, get ahead thing is a huge.
Yeah, yeah.
We
That
all
was
need-
if I just didn't have to sleep, then I would be golden, right? Okay, so can we find out about this by going to your website?
Yeah, you can go to
Coudray.com?
Coudray.com is like if you want to schedule time with me personally.
Okay.
Where you would want to find out about this is a program that I call Catalyst, right? And Catalyst is an agent that affects a reaction. It speeds a reaction up. So it's catalystplan.com, CATALYST plan.com. And that'll tell you a little bit about the program. You'll see a lot of solopreneurs that are on there that fundamentally change the way they see the world. I had one client that he's been with me now 7 years at the coaching level, which is pretty high. He'd been in business for 17 years. I had never gone above 200,000, 215,000 a year ever. And he hung every year between 204 and 217. I think he just locked that value in his mind and kind of homed in on that. So he joined the program in March of 2017. Didn't do much with it until July. And I kind of got after him. I said, you spent money to get into this program. You know that this stuff is going to work. Let's just do it. So he said, okay. Up until that point, he was 100,000 into the year. So he's at six figures halfway into the year. Pretty normal year.
Mm-hmm.
He buckled down, did 2 or 3 things that I taught him, and he finished the year at 575,000 in top line revenue. And he only had one employee.
And he was probably blown away because he'd never been close to that, right?
Not even remotely. And the whole thing was overcoming those self-held beliefs to what is possible. Because the initial result is that when you really look at this closely, it's disbelief. How could this possibly be?
And working less time. That's the thing that I just go, really? Seriously?
Well,
how could he, if it was just him and one employee, how could they possibly have, what is that, 5 times the girl?
Well, here's what we did. We talked about this before the show. He was the first one that blacked out his door and locked the front door. He put up a vinyl sign, vinyl letters that said by appointment only, and that tripled his available time to produce product. So he didn't work any harder, but he was getting 3 times more work out. And then we changed his pricing and we changed his cost structure. And then we started working on his marketing. And all of a sudden now we've got compound levers going. And now it's like, wow, this is amazing. Now he's got all those customers saying, can you teach me how to do what you did for your business? And I go, absolutely. This is called compound commerce, where your clients are working together to create the betterment of the small and medium-sized business community. Everybody benefits from everybody's success. That's what I call co-opetition instead of competition.
Co-opetition. Oh, that's a good word. I got to remember that. Co-op. I don't even know how to spell it. Co-opetition. So, yes, I loved what you said early on about that you helped other people. You taught other people right from the very beginning what you were doing, your competition.
Absolutely. And this really caused a lot of problems for me because I was doing things that were so innovative that I graduated. I was 24 when I graduated from college. At 25, I was invited to be a board member at the association level internationally at the International Specialty Graphics Association. So these are the people that print everything that's not traditional envelopes and business cards. There's banners, there's signage, there's bus wraps, there's bus stations, there's all that kind of stuff. T-shirts, anything that's not paper. So when I got on the board, I started publishing also. I was writing for the magazines, and these old school guys would come up to me and they'd go, "You need to shut up, boy. You're telling all our secrets and you're going to wreck it for all of us." And I said, "Well, you know what? The times are changing, my friend."
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that was like the young Mark talking to these old, grizzled veterans. And I was just this young, long-haired hippie kid from California, probably just smoking dope all day long out there. I had people tell me that. I had hair, right? And it wasn't even that long. But, by comparative standards from somebody in the South, it was long, California and all. But
right.
There was really, traditional beliefs held that you didn't share that information. It was that was your trade secret. That's what made you special. That's fine as long as nothing changed. But as soon as things started to change, then all those trade secrets no longer became valid. They became actually a millstone around their necks. It held their progress back because they weren't looking at the new things. They weren't investing in new technology. They weren't investing in new training. And they were setting themselves further and further back, living off the relationships that they built over the years. And that's fine until those relationships die. And they all die, just like people, right? Those relationships, people get moved up into new positions, businesses close, there's fires, there's divorces. The customer base it declines. And so with no new people coming in, guess what? All those companies, they went out of business or were acquired and consolidated to try and stay alive, and they went out of business. So it's sad, but being able to recognize and see what's going on, I refer to that as brake lights on the freeway. You can see what's coming, so you better slow down. You better figure out if you're going to stay on the freeway or get onto a side street or the frontage road, take a different route, whatever, but you know that you're going to slow down or stop real quick.
That is awesome. Awesome. Catalystplan.com. That's what everybody needs to check out, because you can help people no matter where they're at. If they're just going for that first, say, 100,000 or the march to 1 million, the people that are just above that, I'm sure, are the ones that can really take off. There's so many problems, I would think, with the people just starting out they have to overcome. I don't know. Is that true?
Yeah, the best that we've been able to do so far was working with a $52 million a year manufacturer. They were a steel fabricator. So they bent, folded, welded, drilled metal. 250 employees. I worked with them for 11 months. And in 11 months, their top line sales dropped from 52 million to 46.6 or 46.8. Their net profit increased by 2.16 million, and we did it with 30 less employees. And the CFO said, "I don't know what the heck you just did. I've got an MBA, and this looked like it was magic to me. I've never seen a company that drops top line sales and drops employees and increases their profit." And I said, "Well, it's just paying attention.
Yeah.
And it's looking at your business in a different way." This was a mature company that had been doing the same thing forever, decades. And they just fell into the rut. They just didn't realize that things change. And if you're not paying attention, it's like being on the road. If a stoplight changes from green to yellow, you better slow down or hit the gas, right? If you're close enough to get through. But you just don't ignore it. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a huge problem. And that's where so many businesses, I mean, if you think back into the 80s, that's what happened to the American auto industry. They just were asleep at the wheel. They weren't paying attention to the Toyotas and the Hondas of the world and the quality function that they were bringing in. They made fun of them. And what happened? They lost their market share.
I've enjoyed listening to your analytical process. One of the things that we found about me after many years and many frustrations of being in business, and it wasn't until we had our daughter in college and a 4 or 5 year old son who were both diagnosed as autistic within a few months of each other, really. And I did a deep dive onto the whole thing and found out quickly that the biggest predictor of being on the spectrum is genetics. And after having seen the array of behaviors and realized that, oh, this is pretty clear. My father, myself, and my first and third kids. It also helped me figure out why so many things were so strange in my business. You know, we've had this portrait photography business,
Mhm.
and much of the portrait studio business was based on loyalty. I was a very good portraitist. I could do beautiful work, and people frequently liked it a lot, but they had no loyalty whatever. And so the next portrait they had done, they would use somebody else, and clearly they never thought about it. And we had so many friends that were portrait photographers who were just kind of stunned at that, because that was a very rare thing for someone that went to their studio to go to someone else for a portrait, and it was pretty common for us. And over time, I ended up moving Miriam into most of the client relations, and then even doing all the photography pretty much, because, well, people liked her a lot better. Well, found out eventually that, okay, after having tried to analyze things like crazy, the one thing I hadn't been able to analyze was the fact that I'm autistic, and that just doesn't feel quite the same. People miss some emotional cues with you and everything. And so no, you're not going to be able to build up that kind of thing as an autistic person.
Oh,
But
But
don't know.
analyzing.
yeah,
Oh,
but along the way, I realized that the analyzation skills that I have are way outside of. In fact, in college, one of my ed profs did a lot of tests on us, and so he wanted us to understand how our brains worked and how we taught and everything like that. And after one of the series of tests, he had me come in and said that, well, although I had scored quite high on most of the cognitive methods, um, I was off the scale on analysis and synthesis. And was that a surprise? And I just looked at him and said, no. And he was, huh? And it's going, well, no, because that's an area that seems easy for me. Well, over the years, I've realized that I run on analysis and synthesis, and but your talk about people not seeing change coming. I have watched and analyzed, like, say, our state professional association, photographers association, or studio businesses and this kind of stuff. I have watched and seen the changes, and tried to suggest to people how they needed to adapt, and people would say I'm nuts, that they couldn't see what I was talking about, and that was kind of frustrating for me. But you have done the same kind of analytical work, except you get people to listen to you.
Well,
That is really cool.
so
okay.
I'm not gonna ask you to share with me right now, but I'm gonna share with you what I think is going on, and why this loyalty problem is an issue. Because you did great work. You were an excellent portrait photographer. You had excellent technical skills. You understood the materials that you were working with, the lighting, all of the technical aspects. And what you were selling was a framed picture, a portrait of the person. That's not what you were selling.
No, that's not what we were selling at all. No,
Exactly.
we were selling the feel of walking around in the house and looking at the portraits. I was not interested in selling the technical aspects about it. I never
No,
did.
no, 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 no. What you were selling was the emotional connection to that
Mhm.
image.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
that's what everybody misses. The fact that you could see that you're doing that, every creative person that I talk to, and I talk to all kinds of creative people all the time. You know, I'm a great sculptor. I'm a great painter. I'm a great potterist. I'm a great textile artist or whatever. It's all about the what they do and how they do it, not the why they do it.
Mhm.
And the why is the emotional connection. We're in the business of graphic communication. In today's world, because of consolidation, hack off the word graphic. We're in the business of communication. What are we communicating? We're communicating the emotional connection to whoever is interacting with the work that we do. When you do that and you facilitate that and you amplify that after you've delivered the portrait, you create a much more engaged relationship that facilitates future work.
Yeah,
And
well,
that
see, that was our entire effort to do that. But the thing is, Miriam can do that kind of thing and get that kind of reaction, whereas I simply will not have that kind of a bond that people will develop. And it's one of those things that when you understand, you know, like you talk about the physics, when you understand the nature of the difference in an autistic brain and in a standard brain,
completely.
it is it's kind of a built-in thing, and it's something when you get into on the discussion with a lot of autistics is it is a real common problem. Our daughter is a Lutheran pastor, and people say, well, but then isn't that a problem there? Well, there's an interesting thing
Yeah,
when people see you as an expert at something,
right.
they then don't take their what they feel in the interaction with you, the kind of the understood stuff that goes along in the interaction. That's not nearly as important because, well, you're the expert. And so she has that collar around her neck and deals with her client or with her parishioners,
Right.
and that is really handy. And she's well beloved by her parishioners and all, but and for me, a great example of this was at our professional association things. Miriam and I would be up on platform teaching, and while I was on platform, the way people would react to me was clearly accepting that I was an expert and I knew what I was talking about. Get off the platform out in the hallway. I could be talking with the same person, and they don't really pay attention to what I say.
Well,
And
I think it's because they feel distanced. I've got a really, really close friend. He's an absolute brilliant computer engineer, software engineer. He's built everything that I've ever done for the last 25 years. And he loves to work with me because he said, you know, I can build anything that you tell me. I love the way that you tell me how to do it because I can see the flow of it. I don't understand how you make money with these ideas. His disconnect is the entrepreneurial connection to the work that he's doing. And yet he's got that kind of cold, distant, standoffish. You just don't have that. You don't feel like you've got that emotional connection with him. But it's not something that's a bad thing. I mean, it's just like this is this person. Accept this person for the strengths and try and play towards that emotional connection if you can. It's I'm completely aware of exactly what you're talking about, and it's got to be incredibly frustrating.
well, yeah, and just one last little example on it would be we used to, of course, have all kinds of people calling for portraits, especially high school graduating seniors calling, right? And so we had a script of if they say this, you ask this question. If they say this, you ask this question. And so this bifurcated script,
Right.
And we could take a college girl, or a little college town here. We could take a college girl that had never done any sales or anything, and Miriam could work with her for a couple hours, and someone could call on the phone, and this gal's going down this script and has a great conversation with these people, books a portrait session, and it just works great. I could pick up the same script, go exactly by what the script says, and by the third question, I have absolute silence on the other end of the line. They're not figuring out how we got there, and I'm going, I asked this, they gave this answer, so I asked this question, and
If this and that.
yeah, I could do exactly the same thing and have people just going, huh? And so it was that was incredibly frustrating. But it's one of those things that there's all these things that where my brain doesn't process a lot of the little subtlety things that other people can, and or do as a normal part of it without even thinking about it. It's like you don't think about walking. No one thinks about walking. You just get up and walk. And this is a lot of the stuff with some of those parts of the brains that
I don't know,
simply don't have. It doesn't function that way in our brains, and so therefore it gets in the way of those interactions and makes for real interesting times at times.
So when I was growing up, I was a super introvert. I built models. The happiest day of my life was to have a day where nobody would bother me and I could do what I was doing, whether I was reading, whether I was building models, whether I was doing photography, whether I was surfing, whatever it was. I didn't want anybody around, right? Just stay out of my space. And I had counselors in school say, you've got to be more approachable, and we've got to work on your social skills and your soft skills and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I got no interest in that. I never had any kind of analysis for autism or Asperger's or anything like that. But what I have noticed over time is that I don't believe in this right brain, left brain kind of bifurcation of how we think, the creatives and the analytics. It's whole brain. Work that Daniel Pink and a few others did really opened my mind to the possibility that, how do I think analytically? I think analytically by being aware of the situation and drawing from my knowledge around what I'm seeing in that situation, whether I'm outdoors, whether it's a composition, whether it's lighting or whatever. I would look at it from a technical standpoint. It was when I started to focus on what are the body language, what are the cues, what are the words that this person is saying. It became a situational awareness based on the emotional cues. And so now I was comfortable because I could analyze it and still be focusing on the emotional side of it, and things started getting a lot better. I became a lot more communicative, and I became a lot more comfortable around people, and to be able to handle situations where I didn't know what was coming. So whether it's improvisational or whether it's situational improvisation or whatever it is, it gave me a whole new set of tools on how to deal with those kinds of situations.
Yeah, but I was studying that and trying to apply that my entire life.
I can tell.
Yeah, Miriam's been around this.
We are kind of
that's one of those things that that we did realize that was actually should have been a little key to the fact that I was on the spectrum, was that when I would do a dive into something, I'd go into it at a level that most people just simply
all in
couldn't even comprehend.
Exactly.
And I could master data in quantities that were astounding to other people.
Yep.
In fact, that's part of the reason why at times people wouldn't believe that I could should be as trustable for the knowledge that I had, because how could you possibly have absorbed all that information?
And this is why I always go back to the math and the statistics and the physics and the chemistry, because if I can quantify it with the sciences and the numbers, then It's not BS. I'm not trying to sell you something. This is it. And of course, as soon as you show them the numbers, it's deer in the headlights because they can't process anything. And the fact that you've done that puts you on a different level of expertise, because it's not fake news now. It's like, here's the data. Let's interpret what this means. And I'm never afraid of that. And this is why I share things with other people, is because I know where it came from.
Mhm.
I'm not afraid that what I'm giving away is the end all. It's the end of the information. There's no more information in the universe there. We're done if you give that away. That's the way
Well,
the secret people, zero sum. I win.
Oh, zero sum is a stupid thing.
It is incredibly stupid.
and something that I finally dawned on me as far as not holding on to information and worrying about competition, is that most people won't put it into action.
That's right.
You know,
That was one of the frustrating things about teaching.
exactly what to do, and
Too
the
much
odds of
inertia.
them actually doing it very small.
It's too much inertia. So inertia, you've got to overcome the friction of the mass and the inertia. So then it becomes a matter of saying, okay, what's the friction? What are the things that are overcoming here? Then we can break it out and determine, okay, here's the elements of friction, right? In this case. So you've got a pathway for discovery. You've got a pathway to investigate all of these elements that are keeping us from what we want to achieve. So this is all part of March to a Million, is all of this kind of stuff on how to see it, but not in a technical way. There's no numbers, there's no physics. That's for me. I'm putting it into words that you can use today.
I love it. I love it. This has been awesome. This has been awesome. And I just enjoy geeking out about some of this stuff with you.
I love being around an analyst.
Yes.
There you go.
All right. And we kind of strayed into the whole autism thing, but it's been an interesting show.
Look at how well that worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, okay, we're an analyst, we're talking about all this kind of stuff, and then how do we deal with that? It was a natural evolution. It just flowed in perfectly.
Yep. So let's say goodbye, everybody.
Been great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.